My name is Shireen, and I'm going to be offering a program coming up that will help you really be the parent that is the best parent you can be. It's going to be a challenge, and there's going to be times where you may not feel that the information I'm giving you is accurate. And so I'm going to do my very best to present evidence and research, data, and firsthand experiences of why I form the opinions I have. I have looked at some of these topics since I was a child myself, and then I studied them and got, credentialed and worked and experienced in the human development field of working with young children through school age children and college students and even adult. And I write curriculum on a number of topics, and I try to think of development all the time. I've learned a little bit, not enough, and I'm always learning more about how the brain actually works and functions. And I've looked into a lot of developmental theory, and so I bring a lot to the table when I say I'm a professional in related topics. However, even the best research isn't going to personally tailor your parenting or caregiving experience to be exactly what you need it to be for you. I am going to challenge you though, and I am going to introduce ideas that at times may be a little bit much, but I want you to write it out, and I promise you, and I never make promises that I'm not sure I'm going to fulfill, there will be something in this that will help you be the best parent you can be based on the research that is the hardest to refute, and I almost will dare say irrefutable evidence, which is what has influenced me. And I will then caution you, and we will go over this in the program and workshops and courses, that the results are going to vary incredibly because there is an outer environment that is so dangerously unhealthy, and it is attacking us and our children and our families and our students and our very beings on every level. And so, even the best caregiving and parenting and education in the world cannot protect everyone from the ills of society and the outer world. And so, there's going to be discussions about choices you have to make, hard choices you have to make, about do you use the accumulative research and parent or caregive in the way or teach in the way that is the best way that you can based on the research, or are you preparing your child, students, and people you work with for society? Preparing them for society is dangerous if that's your sole focus, which a lot of educational programs and caregiving programs are designed exclusively and specifically to prepare the students or children for society. Why that is dangerous is that society is changing much faster than anyone can predict, and the directions of society are changing. The needs and skills that each individual human being is going to have or come to the table with will need to be different. And so trying to suppress development in the name of making someone more prepared for society is dangerous. And yet we do have to consider, we can't be totally unrealistic and in a bubble. You're not raising your child in a what's that called, a terrarium or a controlled environment. You're not raising them to just live in your nuclear isolated family unit or your caregiving program or your school. You're raising the child who will have to navigate society. But here's another point. Each student or child that you are caregiving for could end up living in one of many places on earth that could have completely different societal skill-based rewards or disadvantages. So that's another reason to sometimes err towards giving a child the most authentic experience we can give them based on the research we have that should be for their best to develop in the way that would be the best development for who they are. And that is all I'm going to say about that. So let's get started. I know you're going to have a lot of questions, and I know that we probably need to do some back and forth with some surveys to see if we're an appropriate fit to work together, because I will be honest, because I have this research and this background that I have, plus I've, interviewed a lot of families and I've worked with thousands of families over the decades, I do have a very specific caregiving style that I promote, which is more along the lines of secure attachment. There are organizations like Attachment Parenting International, and there are other organizations that support humanitarian rights and basic human rights and the individual's rights, even in a baby. So there is some respect to the autonomy of the child, but there's also the idea that it is appropriate to shape and direct and be a facilitator of a specific philosophical direction of your child to match your own beliefs and values and what your family believes in. So with that, it's going to be a little sensitive. You have to be cautious around that and respectful, but we also need to see where sometimes even our traditions that we believe in, and we believe in the overall faith of our traditions, may have some ideology that is not appropriate for a child's development, and that may be something that you want to introduce later, or you may find a different way of introducing it, or you may want to introduce it and just know you're doing harm to your child in that stage of that or that area of development, and then make choices around that. So we can look at all that. But yeah, I am firmly and strictly and for mostly someone who believes strongly in attachment caregiving theory, and then the other secure attachment caregiving theories, and then the other things relate to hands-on participation-based, play-based, joy-based, fun-based educational theory and developmental theory and encouragement theory, where the person wants to participate, they want to cooperate, they want to be a part of the group, they want to do the activities or whatever it is. And so that's my background. That's what I'm trained in, and arts-based education, arts-based academics in specific, and multicultural, anti-biased education, and whatever, a bunch of other things. But that's not here nor there. What this is going to focus on is more the primary years and how we're going to address making sure the child feels that their needs matter, and that how to best meet those needs, but also be respectful that the child will have to recognize there are other people in the universe, and your child will actually have to meet other people's needs as part of their experience going through the world as a caregiver. So we're not going to raise them to be codependent. We're not going to raise them to be independent. We're going to raise them to be interdependent, because that's what humans truly are. And so that's the only logical choice to use when you're creating your caregiving modality, how you're going to actualize it based on your philosophies, is based on that. So we may differ. You may right away not resonate with this. So let's not sign up for a battle. Let's work with people who are already like, yeah, this is exactly where I want to go. This is the direction I want to go. And I'm lacking the how to. I need some personal, back and forth. I need to ask questions and have them answered. I need to discuss the issues I'm having with my specific family, and I want to be in a network of people who are going to support me. And so that's part of it. That's part of the program. It's not just workshops and engagement and learning, but also building a peer circle with people who believe in what you believe in, so that you can extend on that. Now, we're not going to get into politics at all, and I'm going to be very strict about this, because I have worked with people of very opposite political spectrums, but when it comes to childcare and child rearing and the fundamental values that they were instilling in their children, they were identical. I'm going to say that again. Even though their political beliefs were on opposite spectrums, in extremes on opposite spectrums, for some reason, as they went through this type of really looking and examining which values they're going to be utilizing as far as how they parent, and then which values they're going to instill in their children or caregive, not just parent, but caregive. And if you are a caregiver, you really can't be using your own personal beliefs around something like politics. So you have to use developmental theory to guide you. And remember, developmental theory holds true no matter where you are in the world. And so, how the right and the left are almost like reversed at times in Europe. It's or what would be an American. I'm in America, obviously with my California accent, but That would be reversed. So we're not going to get into all that. So don't think when I say you're going to find people who are going to parent with your same values or teach or educate or caregive with your same values. That's not the values I'm talking about. I'm talking about specifically and exclusively caregiving values. So we're going to stick to only topics that relate to that. And when we go into anything where people have different values, I want you to also honor and respect that. You may be working with people or having discussions with other parents that have the completely opposite political values as you, and you can still be teammates in problem solving what to do when child A hits child B because you have the same core values. The other thing that's wonderful about this is over time we will find that our core values through attachment parenting and appropriate child care giving and developmental theory that is based on research and almost irrefutable evidence is we're going to find that politically maybe we aren't that different from one another and that we're just being tricked by these outer voices that are polarizing us on some things that maybe don't relate specifically to our families so much and to ourselves so much and to how we're going to live our lives so much. And maybe we're going to raise children through attachment parenting to be more responsible to the future and to our world and find ways to find more common ground and find ways to cut through the propaganda and get to those core value differences and similarities where we can find a way to cooperate and live together, because that's also part of the philosophy with attachment parenting and secure attachment parenting is also that we're encouraging a harmonious, cooperative future where you are recognized and honored and you do have autonomy and choice as an individual, but you are part of a bigger societal, functional world where what you do and how you behave with the others and how you get along does matter. And that's part of it is people that are learning about nonviolent communication or anti-violent or nonviolent parenting, they will also find that this has a lot of truth to it and it connects to it and it flows into these other philosophies very well. There may be just a few slight differences because I do work with, I try to be more culturally sensitive to different cultures, and some of these are really designed for specific uses in specific cultures. So, I'm not going to say they're going to be, specific to that, but they will fit with some of the other, they will fit with something that relates to these things depending on what that relates to. So I just wanted to put that out there to make sure that this is appropriate for you. So let's talk a little bit about a specific of something that we're talking about, when you're parenting with this different attitude of love and joy-based development and secure attachment. If child A was hitting child B, you would not respond with anger, you would not respond with violence, you would not respond with aggressive behavior towards child A. And what the technique that often will work, and again, we may have to tweak this depending on the age of your children, how many children, what the scenario is that's leading up to this. So often there is an interventional moment, or there is a before, like when they're very, very young and child A is about to hit child B, you can intervene and be like, oh, are you going to touch your sibling very kindly right now? And yeah, that's weird, but that's like you literally could take their hand as it's in the air and very kindly and gently put it in a loving way again and remind them what that looks like, because they may get confused. And then also remind them, if you're feeling aggressive and you want to let out some energy out of yourself right now, why don't we go and throw a ball together or hit a drum or, squeeze things or whatever. You can guide them towards toys that are more appropriate for that release right then. So they understand sibling touch nicely or younger children touch nicely of, other items we can touch aggressively, and that's okay. That's appropriate. So that's one methodology for the youngest ones. With older ones, as I say, you may not be able to intervene in time. They get struck. It already happened. It happens. The best, you could be standing right there and it can happen. So don't blame yourself. It happens. Do your best to intervene when you cannot. It's already occurred. Now you have to act. Okay? What you do next is going to be challenging because you so want to. You so want to react child A. Because child A has just Push your buttons. But you cannot trust me on this one. Instead, immediately turn to child B, the one who was hit. Especially if there wasn't a back and forth. Now, we're not talking about when they're fighting back and forth. We're talking about child A literally goes to hit child B. And often child A is bigger or older than child B in this scenario that I'm working with just for this video purpose, to just kind of reveal that I do know something and I could maybe help you. So anyway, this is happening. You will even turn your body, if possible, to child A, and you will immediately lean in and turn your facial focus, your body, towards child B, and you'll immediately say, "Oh my goodness, are you okay? I saw that you were hit XYZ place or here or this. Do you want a cold sponge, your little ice pack thing or whatever it is, or do you want, and touch that spot and just be like, do you want me to hold you? Do you want me to take you to the ice? And give them a little corny, almost extra attention if they're younger. If they're older, it can be a little more appropriate of like, hey, do you need anything? Are you okay? Oh my goodness, that must have been really hard. And then as you are caretaking for them, you can discuss, that must have been really hard. That feels really terrible. I wonder, I'm sorry. You can even apologize if it was not appropriate or whatever. I'm sure I wasn't able to jump in there in time. Or I wish, you can even say, I wish I had been able to catch that block before it knocked your block. Kiddo. Don't go overboard. Don't take too much responsibility for what someone else did, but you were the caregiver and you did let a child get hurt in your care. So you do need to take some responsibility to that child. Like, in the future, I'm going to try to see if I can get in there in time. I also wonder if you can, do anything in this situation. Maybe talk to them about what choices do you have? And if they didn't really have a choice, like, definitely don't victim blame here. Do not encourage this idea that they had a way to avoid this, but maybe they had a little bit of a way to avoid this. I don't know. Maybe, and if there was some personal responsibility in it, like they took their siblings' picture outside and it got torn. That's a bad example because they did something kind of really they shouldn't have done. That was something innocent. They were eating off the same snack thing and they didn't really realize they ate all the grapes or something like that, or I don't know. And then their sibling knocks their block or whatever. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a really, really innocent thing that would still make the other child respond that way. But whatever it is, if it's really innocent, don't encourage anything like that. But if it was something like they actually participated in it, you can discuss like, how they did lead someone to anger, and it's okay to take responsibility for you making someone angry. That's okay. People do make others angry. Don't get into all that, especially you're caregiving someone. Oh yeah, and I can make you angry. I can make a child angry. A child can make me angry. People can make each other angry. That's a thing. You don't have that much personal responsibility. You're not a robot. I could say or do things to people to hurt them, especially the more I know them. So a child with another child definitely can make their sibling upset. And they know that they could do that. So you could say like, oh, did this and this that you chose to do end up angering your sibling? Wow. That's a bummer. But even though they were angry, physically harming you like this wasn't appropriate. I sure wish, what do you wish they had done? What do you wish they had done when you angered them? And then get into that discussion. Meanwhile, child A is often tagging about or hears you or is moping or hopefully isn't hitting your back as you're doing this, but they might be. And if you can hold strong in this moment, this is the only time you're going to accept it. And if they still have the object, definitely grab that object. But if they start just pounding or whatever, just don't turn around and focus on grabbing them right then. This is be one of the only times one of the only scenarios that I would recommend just let your back get plummeted in that moment and stay focused. Stay focused on the injured child. Because quickly, if the need is attention or if they care about that or if it's, some focus like that, they're going to stop doing it. But if you give them a lot of energy and attention and focus every time they do this, then anytime they want your energy, attention, or focus, they're going to go and smack someone straight up. And so many children that have come into my care, whether I was an in-home caregiver or running a program, and they come into my classroom, they were trained from their families or life or previous caregivers. They had already been trained that when they wanted your attention, they should go strike another child. And it was this horrible way of getting my attention. And I was like, no, Miss Shireen is never, never playing that. And as I said, this is the one time I'm going to turn my back to them, be 100% available to the other child. And I have had kids strike me, and I just ignored it like it wasn't even happening. I was just like, oh, yeah, you want to go and eat this, you need an ice pack. Let's go get you an ice pack, honey, or whatever. Not honeying them if they're not my own care plot, but, get you an ice pack, say their name or whatever. And yeah, that's the other thing. Say the injured child's name. Do not say the child name. So then what do you do later about child A? Child A still exists. You love child A. Child A could be your child or one of your students or whatever. You love child A. You want child A to have a positive experience and leave this not feeling like a bad guy, because that's going to encourage more of the wrong behavior, more of the wrong way of getting attention. If you identify yourself as bad, you're going to behave worse and worse. So never want to give the child an idea they were bad. It's just they get nothing. They get nothing. The other thing is, also, while I'm caregiving this child, my energy is going towards being nice. And so I'm focused on not being as angry and aggressive as I would have been in that first instance. In that first instance, if I had responded to child A, I might say and do the wrong things because I'm mad. I'm legitimately angry. So then later, at a time when we've all calmed down, child B has been nurtured, and depending on the age of the children, this could go on a minute or two. This could go on a while. You could leave with that child. You could feed that child or do an activity with that child. And again, we're talking parenting different than school. School? No. Parenting? Yeah, different. You're stuck at home with them. It's totally different. Anyway, you could have a moment with this other child before you return to child A. At some point, you must, and this is where it's getting tricky, and it's going to be a case-by-case, child-by-child moment, you must recognize the opportunity. Not when you feel punitively. See, it's not a punitive thing. You're not doing this punitively. So I'm saying it can only be a minute sometimes. But you must recognize the opportunity for when that child has energetically softened. That's when you have to start becoming sensitive and aware, and it helps to have a background in doing this. And I know if you're new to this, it's going to be really tricky to catch when the opportunity for softening has happened. But if you can seize that opportunity for softening, you make sure child B feels loved and received. You switch then some of this, and you can even open your body language where you're still including child B, but you've now opened yourself to child A, and you can make eye contact. Don't say their name yet, okay? You're just making yourself available. Especially if they're young, don't do this for more than a minute. It can mean something more than you understand. Time goes differently to young children, so you want to then make yourself available again, so they're not afraid. They do not feel rejected. Okay, you're still there. You're still open to them. But they saw where your attention went. They saw whose name you said. Now you're available. But you're not saying their name. You're not engaging yet. Now, some point later, so that's the moment of opportunity. Okay, they may want to get in on the discussion. If you can engage right then, if they initiate, engage. Otherwise, do not bring up the discussion with them quite yet. Because there's a second moment of opportunity where you will recognize they have more than softened. They are receptive to discussing it. You may now initiate that, Evan. You may say, you remember earlier when you knocked your brother's block off with the block? Or you remember when you kicked Sally in the leg or whatever? I don't want to say a name. Sorry. Remember when you, whatever you did to so-and-so. You could say that right then, okay? Excuse me. And you just say it like that. See what they say when you say remember it. If they go, oh yeah, I would do it again. Well, now you got a different direction to go, okay? Then if they go like, oh yeah, or if they go like, I don't remember. That's, you have a now we're going into the branch where I have to teach you a bunch of stuff, and I don't want to make this video too long, but I just want to, so we're going to follow one branch because I can't do all the branches right now. In my work with you, we'll do all the branches you want and more. But for this branch, we're going to follow to where they're just receptive, and they're kind of like struggling. Yeah. You say, well, you must have been really angry that you acted out in violence like that. It's okay to say it. And then they say, yeah, I was really angry. They did this or that, or I felt like it was my turn, or they are always hogging the butt, or they knew I was gonna, or whatever it is. Let them say it. And do not tell them no at that moment. Even if they're exaggerating, unless it's like really off, then we gotta work it. If they're making stuff up 100% off from what happened, then we're talking a different direction. But for this, let's just say it's pretty close to reality, maybe a little bit from their viewpoint. Let it go. Let it go. Let them say, wow, I could, I could hear how angry you were from this. You're not saying it happened. You're not saying you agree. You're saying, I can hear how angry you felt about this. Okay? Then you're going to say, wow, sometimes I feel really angry too. But I have learned things to do other than knock someone's block or attack them violently or whatever. I have learned other things to do. Let's talk about what you could have done differently. Now the door is open. They will say something. Let them say something. Let them talk. Let them say a few things. If they don't like what they say first, let them say this. Say, You didn't say yes or no. You said, Can you think of anything else? Like, let's say they say something really stupid, like, I just not play near her ever again. Or, like something not realistic. Like, no, we're talking about once you're already angry. You can even redirect them. Like, no, let's say something happened and you were already that angry. Just as angry as that again. What is something else you could do instead of attacking someone violently? Bleed them back in a little. If they get resistant, if they start getting upset, if they start getting angry, know when to back out and know when to push. Okay? And direct them until they say something constructive. Even if it's only one thing. If you could get a little more, if they seem receptive, they want to talk about it, great. Some kids are like, oh, I could do this, or I could do that, or I could. Yeah, let them go. Run with it. But if they're hesitant and you had to really draw that one or two things out, let it be. And then later, third opportunity, there may be an opportunity if you can analyze what the conflict was, and you should in your arsenal, your educational arsenal, already have the materials that I'm going to suggest now. But you could have a story book. It'd be great if it's pre-written from someone else. That's a winner. Otherwise, you might have to write it yourself. But yeah, you should have a story that you tell, and it's about a way that this is resolved, or it brings up an emotion, and then how people resolve it, or something. Or if you don't have anything like that, and you don't want to take the time to write and bind a book, although you should write and bind books, I encourage you to, especially for your students and your own children and whatnot. But if you don't have time to do that, you could do like a little finger puppet thing, a little story. Don't get too corny. Make a little bit of a story. Like don't patronize your children or your students. Don't treat them like they're stupid. You're gonna have to make it somewhat engaging. Make it a little confusing. Make there be a reason why this one might have bugged this one, or this one might get angry. Like, give it some reality to it. Give it some bulk. But then demonstrate a different way of resolution. Demonstrate an appropriate way to handle anger. And maybe even have something where one gets really, really, really angry. Like maybe, I don't know, an accident happens with an accident, and something that someone was building for a long time, they worked on, an art project gets ruined or something, and then they really have a right to be angry, but they reacted so violently, but they were justified in a reaction, but a violent reaction is never acceptable, and that's what we're trying to teach. So anyway, I have just taken up way too much of your time, but this is a common subject that we have to deal with on an ongoing basis. If you're ever caregiving more than one child of somewhat, close in age or even far in age, you are dealing with this on an ongoing basis. And I'm just scratching the surface. And I was giving a very generic example. Again, you may throw something at me where what I just recommended can't work or isn't appropriate. We're going to look at what we could do in those situations. And as I said, at that certain point, we could branch off into the child's reaction being so many different things. And then based on that, we would do different things. But I just wanted to throw it out there in case this helps you. Here's my little freebie tidbit. I throw these out. If you search the internet, you're going to find a lot of stuff, but I still have more wisdom to share and teach because it's long-winded and each thing can build on the next. So once you understand one concept, I could get you this across in half the time because you're familiar with it when we go on to the next one. Like when we go into the tree branches of possibilities of that child's reaction, we're not going to have to catch up 20 minutes to that point. We will go forward from there, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. So we can do this a lot faster once you understand my basic philosophies and we get the foundation out together. We're on shared language, shared, concepts, shared values. then we can move forward. But I just wanted to put this out there that I have practice with this. I have done this endless times. I've redirected children, young children, and I have then worked with older children who need to learn how to actually think it through and process what actually happened, so that, reviewing it and lamenting it and reworking it and then being prepared and then practicing how to handle things in a future scenario. You can also do mock store owner, where you have the customer come in and make the store owner mad, and then the store owner has to be nice because it's their store, and then teach the child how to respond nicely even when they're angry. You could practice that way as another tidbit. There's a lot of dramatic play ways. There's things we could do with art. I mean, there's all kind of things we could do to teach practice of how to respond when we're angry, and it's something that even as adults we need to respond to. And as I said, my own children, no, I didn't even realize I had anger issues until I had them, and I'd worked with thousands of students. I've been stabbed by students with a pencil, and I just didn't even know I had anger issues until I had my own children. So for parenting, this gets way more complicated, but if you're caregiving someone else's children, it's a little bit easier, and there's often some type of structure, and there's other educators around often, or adults that you can rely on, other grown-ups to call in as you work with child B to kind of make sure child A doesn't go on a rampage. And that was the one thing I wanted to throw in before I let you go, is that make sure when you turn and focus on child B that child A doesn't go attack child C, D, or E, because if they're on a rampage, you have to handle that differently. If they're small, you can actually pick them up, put them on your hip, pretend they don't exist, no matter how much they flail, no matter how much they kick you. That's how I got stabbed with a pencil. But then focus again on child B while child A is just loose. If they are in another violent area, whatever, you can actually remove the class or the group away from child A. Remove the rest of the people and abandon child A if they're going in continuing to harm more children. It is totally appropriate at that point to isolate and abandon them for that temporary period, because you are keeping the group safe from a child that is gone kind of, they're going into ballistic anger mode, and they've lost control. And then you're going to have to work with that. Certain things need to be documented. Certain things you should take your notes on your ouchie reports, and get that to if you're not the parents, or if you're not the primary caregiver, or if you're not whatever, make sure you document some things. If you're caregiving in a professional setting, make sure you document things, and again, relate to the family about incidents, because if you're a team at home and in the caregiving, then things work better. Again, now here's what's interesting. If you're a parenting team and you have other people on your parenting team, you have grandparents, you have a co-parent, you have aunties, uncles, cousins, whoever, or you have some caregivers, like you have a nanny, a babysitter in your team. It's okay to document some things, but don't document everything, because that makes people crazy. But, incidents that there was a learning breakthrough, or there was not a learning breakthrough, or there was really the violence went way too far, or something noteworthy, make sure you get that to the rest of your team so that they know the learning that occurred, or what learning still needs to happen, and what areas we're working on and whatnot, and try to pull everyone together. Always remind everyone that even if this incident, makes you personally feel angry, this child is learning what to do when a child does this in their future. And I want to say that as my last note. Every time a child is misbehaving horribly around you, there is a part of them that is subconsciously doing the wrong thing to watch what you do, because one day they could get left in charge of a group of children, and it could be their wisdom that will enable these children to survive. And so they will need to know what you did in order to be a caregiver themselves, or a parent, or whatever. And because we biologically have this notion in us that we may end up being responsible for a child one day ourselves, even as a child, this is in our biology to know this innately. Some of the pushing of the buttons of adults is sheerly for survival purposes for the species. We do this, like you go up and kick your mom or you kick your auntie, or you go kick your teacher, or whatever. Some of that is to find out, when I'm the mom or dad or the auntie or the teacher, what should I do when the little people come and kick me? So that's why there is a multi-generational thing happening. And this is based on our survival as a species. This is why we do this. And so don't always get so angry emotionally. Don't take it personally. Remember, they are doing wrong on purpose sometimes to learn how you're going to react so they know how to react when people in the future do wrong. This also translates to when you're a grown up and your people around you do something wrong to you. Are you going to violently plummet them with the block? Are you going to knock their block because they, whatever it is? No, you learn as a grown up how to express anger in a lot of different ways. And so that is also why the child does this when they're in the safe, nurturing, dependent stage of their life where they are dependent and they do this to you not to torture you on purpose. This idea that children misbehave on purpose is almost true. It's not to upset you. It's to find out what is the correct thing to do, what is the correct way to respond when somebody upsets them as a grown-up or when they are one day a caregiver themselves. So that is a lot of wisdom for you in this little segment. I bet you're going to have questions. I'm only available so much. You're going to have to enroll. I cannot just, I have to, pay my bills. And I do too much of this volunteer. I work in nonprofit alternative education and as a multicultural performing artist and in the performing arts, and neither pay really anything. And so we're going to work on this workshop being obtainable and affordable for you. And if it's not and you really want that and you really resonate with this, maybe there's something you can do for me to help me with some of the tech stuff or some of the other things you could do. Maybe there's something you could do, or maybe we can set up a payment plan, or, I'm really flexible. I don't want to withhold this information from anyone who would actually use it. I really want you to have it. And yet I need to live in the real world too. So, let's talk about how we're going to make a win-win and figure out a way to do this. So, if you are intrigued and interested and you want to work with me and you want to learn from me, I want to teach you. I also want you to give me the maximum amount of money that you can give me for this rewarding your life of me working with you and trying to give you a lifetime's worth of research in a very, very, very condensed thing. Like what I just shared with you is taking volumes of books, years of practice and watching and observing and then demonstrational trying. And, children are being experimented on in every program all over the world because no situation happens twice. So every educator, caregiver, or parent is doing the best they can, but we're not robots, thank goodness. And that's what makes us able to respond uniquely to the moment and work with trying to preserve the child's sense of self and value, and also, teach them how to behave in a way that will be conducive to their well-being and the world. Thank you very much. I hope that we get a chance to work together more, and I hope that we learn together and we make the world a better place by teaching with joy, teaching with love, caregiving with preservation and honoring of the being, and not suppressing, destroying, oppressing, or not teaching with violence, not teaching with fear and anger, but instead teaching with encouragement, love, guidance, nurturance, kindness. So thank you. Let's do this. Looking forward to it.